Hello and very warm welcome to this special supply chain dialogues focus on fueling D2C brands growth engine with supply chain, organized by the Economics Times Retail Vertical, ET Retail, in collaboration with Delivery. Over the next 50 to 60 minutes, we will be focusing on different issues, challenges, and opportunities that D2C brands are witnessing in supply chain management. And to lead the discussion forward, today I'm joined by Mr. Rohan Shanbag, Senior Vice President and Regional Sales at Delivery, Ms. Aarti Gill, Co-founder and CEO of Oziva, Mr. Girish Kulkarni, SCM Head at Plum, Ms. Mansi Gupta, Founder and CEO Tijori, Mr. Tarun Sharma, Co-founder and CEO McAfee, Mr. Vikas Nahar, Founder and CEO Happylo, and Mr. Vedant Patel, Co-founder and Director, The Sold Store. Thanks everyone for taking out time and joining us for this special discussion. And let me begin with Ms. Aarti. Ms. Aarti, what we have noticed that during the pandemic that most of the sector faced some type of challenges. And for most of the organization, pandemic was a big learning. Would you like to share, especially from your experience, as to what have been the major experience, both in terms of the challenges and the opportunity that you witnessed during the pandemic?
Hi, everyone. Good to be here as a part of the panel. I think very valid question. Let me start with actually the phase one of the pandemic, right? Where we saw that, most of the companies and most of the organizations, be it large or be it startups, right, saw like, there was a lot of uncertainty around, the procurement, whether, your ingredients, your raw material or your packaging materials, right? And hence, I think what was required, I think after phase one, right, I think the companies got better, right, with respect to planning or with respect to, say, for example, ensuring that the right investments are made to either procure and stock the inventory, right? If you foresee that something will get out of stock or the prices are going out of control, right? And the other things that, all of us realized was the benefit of having long-term negotiations with the partners, right? To ensure that there is a better pricing strategy in place, right? And I think for us also at Oziva, those were the two levers that we have seen that have worked well over the last 2 years.
Right. Before I go to Mr. Rohan Shanbag, I'll go to Ms. Mansi. Ms. Mansi, would you like to add your views as to what have been the major learning during the pandemic and some of the effort that you would have taken to eliminate some of the challenges that we all face actually?
So, of course, like she mentioned, pandemic had a huge impact on retail sector, and we are in fashion as a business, and we saw this. The market was so bullish in terms of the prices of fabrics. It used to, every single day you ask for a price and it's going to be different. So our entire costing structure therefore changed, if you really think about it. And we have had months where we realized that because we could not change the pricing, because on the products which were made with the same kind of raw materials, etc., but the raw material pricing kind of changed automatically, like all of a sudden. And because we were selling on our own platform as well as on marketplaces, getting that change implemented everywhere therefore was a challenge. However, this definitely had a huge impact on what do you call it, the EBITDA profitability of the company, and there would be days you'll be making losses because you realize that on a certain day the price of the fabric was so high, and every day the pricing was changing. So in order to kind of combat stress, we started at least buying for about 3 odd months, so that it effectively became like how stock market is. Because like the yarn prices it's not news for anyone. Like the yarn market went for a toss because ultimately a lot of the weavers who were majorly impacted by pandemic, a lot of them were not even weaving. Like I remember when we wanted to place some orders in winters for some summer yarn fabrics, they were not taking orders because they did not know what the price of the yarn is going to be like, and they would not seal the price in winters for a summer fabric. Right. So then it automatically created that demand supply gap, because people who wanted to procure well in advance so that they have some control on the pricing, they were not able to, because the production was held. Right. People were not taking orders. The weaver market was not taking orders at all.
Right, right. Rohan, I'll come to you now because organizations like yours were always, even in the tough lockdown, you were on the street actually delivering product here and there across the, and you worked with both sides of the supply chain. Would you like to share your what have been your experience during the pandemic and some of the lessons that you all learned that could turn into an opportunity down the line?
Yeah, thanks, Mohammed. And pleasure to be on the panel with everybody. I think there was a little bit of echo, so just wanted to kind of call that out to the tech team. So I think there were two things from our perspective that we saw during the pandemic. I think one was technology played a critical role for us. We started our network back literally 5 days after the lockdown was announced. And what we were able to do was through technology, given what, as Aarti said, there was a lot of uncertainty. What we were able to do is that using our data science team, we were able to identify locations based on what kind of a containment zone it was. And we were also able to use our technology to understand what was considered essential product and non-essential product. Because what we didn't want to do is move a shipment that would go out in the field and be caught by the cops for being a non-essential product. So we had to use our technology tools really well to ensure that our ground teams, about 50,000 of them, field executives, were aware of what product they were carrying and in which locations they could operate and could not operate. So we didn't send them in the wrong locations. And I think everybody knows that the locations were changing on a daily basis. So that was one part. The technology for us played a really big role. The second was the resilience of our network and what we are seeing playing out now in terms of how companies are re-strategizing about their supply chain. For example, the way we run our network is that it's what we call a mesh network. We don't have fixed routes that a shipment from, say, Ahmedabad to Bangalore will have to flow through, say, Bhiwandi or in Bombay. We had a situation where due to some of the lockdowns, our Bhiwandi warehouse had to shut down for a few days. What we were able to do was automatically flow the products through Pune and nearby facilities to move them forward, right? So we had that kind of resilience built in. It was never built for the COVID era, but it helped us in the COVID situation. What we are seeing now with clients is that they are de-risking their FC network. For example, clients may have had 1 or 2 warehouses, have realized that it is much more impactful to have it in multiple different locations. So they are A, closer to clients, but also B, they are in a position to respond faster if locations shut down.
Right, absolutely. Mr. Girish, would you like to add something on what Ms. Aarti earlier said and Ms. Mansi also spoke about, especially having the visibility during the pandemic across your supply chain? And most of us actually face some level of challenges during the pandemic, but the integrated platform came quite handy, especially for mitigating those challenges. Would you like to add your views?
Yeah, sure. First of all, pleasure to be here. Hello, everyone. I could relate to mostly what Rohan said just now, because I can still remember that from manufacturing front and from last mile delivery front, we actually did not face many hiccups. What was challenging for us was the warehousing bit, okay, and the whole order processing part of supply chain. So there we actually were compelled because of the pandemic to go to multiple locations to hedge our risks, okay, during the pandemic, because when earlier to that we were only present in one location, And when you're present in only one location geographically, it's very difficult, and it can lead to disruptions at any point of time. So that's what happened, first of all. And because of that, one thing was that uh, hedging the risk happened. Secondly, we went closer to the market, closer to the customers, and thereby, reducing last mile delivery costs as well as the lead times, etc. So in the hindsight, although the pandemic was of course a roller coaster ride for almost all of us, it also gave us a lot of capability boost, by increasing our daily order processing capability by around 6 times. So I think it was I would say, fortunately or unfortunately, it was a boon in disguise.
Right. Tarun, would you like to add your views?
Thank you so much for having me on the panel. And the brand name is M Caffeine, and we get the McCaffeine part a lot of times. But just clarify, if I had $1 every time somebody said McCaffeine, paise nahi uthane padte. But so thank you so much for having me. I think fully agree to everyone, Aarti, Mansi, Girish. For us, apart from all the things which the panel has said, one of the things which we proactively did was we started going to the source of our so supply chain is procurement, production, warehousing, and logistics for a brand like us. Warehousing and logistics are pretty much sorted by the good folks like delivery, ship rockets, express fees. Warehousing, as Girish said, we went closer to the customers, opened 3-4 more warehouses. Production is very captive in nature. It got solved and it's in its own way. But I think procurement is where we were getting a lot of uncertainty because we have a lot of specialty ingredients on which we work. And these specialty ingredients do get sourced from outside and do get produced in India as well. So what we did was that we built 3 layers of it: source, master, and then whatever we can call it, a commoditized version of the distribution, right? A large part of our pre-COVID procurement used to happen at the 3rd level. And we said, it's working well. Nobody thought about to go to the source. Over 6 months of our in-COVID life, we started going to the source and started hedging ourselves from a procurement standpoint, so that if everything is set, for example, I don't have X ingredient, it would become practically impossible for us to work in any chain of supply, right? So that's something which worked for us. And now it has actually helping us in a pretty much post-COVID era to hyperscale ourselves, because we can click in each and every layer and can expand at our luxury.
Right. Mr. Vikas, and would you like to add, especially on the procurement part, which Mr. Sharma was mentioning?
I think we had a very similar problems in, if you talk about procurement. That's what Tarun was discussing as well, because we buy from across more than 10 countries, and a lot of ingredients are imported, right? So there are a lot of choke in the supply chain in terms of availability of the shipping containers. A lot of issues. There was a Suez Canal issue during the COVID era. COVID era itself, a lot of ports were closed, and then you have wartime situations like one in Afghanistan, one in Ukraine. So a lot of impacts on the back end integration. So earlier we were actually planning 1 or 2 months in advance. Now we actually have to plan. For example, now for the Diwali this year, we are actually started planning already. So we actually are now working like almost 6 months. We have to look at the pipeline very closely and try to understand. A lot of risk also there in terms of availability, in terms of being relevant, like how you're talking about hedging and all those things. So we are also looking to increase our sources of procurement as well. And in terms of other things, I think being closer to customer, as Girish was saying, open multiple touch points. You never know which particular area can be shut down due to a pandemic. So that is what we are doing on the front end, trying to be close to the customer, increase better the customer experience as well, and be relevant, because today's customer, because of so much of advancement in the commerce industry today, right from delivering in 3 days to now in like less than 10 minutes. I think today more and more the expectation of the customer is very high. So right from procurement to the last mile delivery, I think a lot of advancement has happened, and thanks to COVID, the technology has really accelerated.
Right. Mr. Vedang, if you could share your views also, especially around the challenges that you have witnessed, and those, if we could convert into the opportunity, what would be those ones?
I think the challenges for supply chains, everyone is more or less covered. COVID was such a impact that although we saw it rising overnight, the game really changed, right? Once the government puts a lockdown, then the rules just change. What was very clear from that point is companies that are light and agile, most startups are, we're going to do really well. While if you have all of these strong systems which are not very flexible put in place, then that's a problem, and you're not really going to be able to take advantage of the situation. So for a company like ours, I think we're very lean. Agility has always been the aim of the game. So a lot of positives there. I think the negative there is because we're very lean, we weren't stocked up enough to take advantage of the fact that nobody will be able to sell while we are online, and we could have started selling at some point, but we ran out of inventory very fast. So the lead that was a learning that we had, and we realized that the cost of capital is nothing compared to the cost of opportunity. So now at all points, we just keep a few extra days of inventory, raw materials, whatever it be. And being online has been an advantage, especially in the pandemic. I'll be very frank. Very easy to go online to offline versus the other way around. Mm-hmm. So for us, I think from a supply chain point of view, there were a lot of learnings, mostly in just keeping a buffer stock. Right. The other learning is to just make sure that you're well diversified. Don't be reliant on one factory or two factories, because if the cases rise out there, or if the local restrictions out there are different, then that becomes a problem. So if you're well diversified, means one factory in Tirupur, you're working one in Bhiwandi like we have, and I think that then becomes much easier.
Right. Absolutely. I think you're absolutely right, especially on the agility part. And that agility also comes from the kind of visibility that you like to have across your ecosystem, including your supply chain. Ms. Aarti, would you like to add your view, especially around having visibility across the value chain? Is something that we are observing that really helps business, create new ideas and deliver on the promises. How that is evolving in post-pandemic world?
Yeah, no, I think as Rohan mentioned, right? So today, I think the great thing is, for example, there are partners that we can work with, like, for example, delivery, right? Areas they can deliver, especially this was relevant during the COVID period, right? What are the containment zones, what are not, right? I think that helps, right? Because as I already mentioned, it brings more certainty, right? I think let me touch more about from a consumer point of view, what has happened over the last few months, right? Today, I think consumers have better visibility around where the parcel is, right? When would they get it? Like the prediction algorithms have also become much better in terms of when the delivery would happen, right? At the same time, if I look at just a communication layer, right? I think the tech today is so smart. Like, for example, if you want to change address after you place the order and it's during the entire journey, right? Customer can change it, right? It's very beneficial because the return rate of the company decreases, right? At the same time, there are other systems built in place where, for example, the major problem for customers today also, we have a lot of say 50% or 60% COD orders that are placed in the country, right? Which is where if they don't have the money when the parcel reaches, right? What can they do during the journey? So communications are WhatsApp communications have now started, right? Where they can chain the COD orders to the prepaid orders, right? Which is what has happened, like a lot of certainty and a better communication, right? So that customers have more visibility around like the entire delivery process, right? I think that's something that has happened for good.
Right. Mr. Rohan, would you like to add your views, especially around the visibility part?
Yeah, I'll cover one point. I think in my conversations with clients, potential clients, existing clients, what we've seen is they end up working in different parts of the business of their supply chain with many different vendors. So for last mile, they may have 3 to 5 partners. For LTL, which is part truckload and delivering to retail, they may have 4 plus partners. Warehousing, they may have at least 2 different partners. And then there's a technology aspect. So you may use a technology partner for warehousing, which is different from the person who runs your facility. What we see is that when you have so many different bespoke partners, trying to integrate that becomes a technology challenge. So automatically your visibility drops, or you are coordinating across too many stakeholders. One of the things that we've been doing with larger clients, and now we are bringing this to D2C brands, is what we call an end-to-end supply chain, right? So delivery has been not just a parcel company, but we do warehousing, LTL, FTL, cross-border. We stitch it together with the backbone of technology so that you're able to now see all the information, whether it's if you have 5 warehouses, you have inventory visibility of all your warehouses. You can integrate it with all your sales channels, not just your D2C channel, but also say if you're selling on Amazon or Flipkart, you have visibility of it. The other thing is because you know which SKU is where, and many of you are from the fashion side, so you may not be having stock in the place that you would like it to be, but at least you have visibility of where the stock is. So during the checkout point, you're able to give the customer or your consignee the visibility on how long it might reach, because say the customer's in Pune, but the shipment is not coming from Bombay, it's coming from Calcutta. That's as an example. You'll be able to give that information. That visibility is important because the checkout then is a better customer experience. And then you're able to then do the last mile, whether it's with us or somebody else, but you are able to see it all together. So you're, I'm going a little technical here, but your order management layer and your transportation layer can be integrated. And you're working with a limited set of partners so that your integration and information flow is much better, not just for yourself, but more importantly for the end consumer, because then you're able to share that information much better with them and let them make the choice of buying with you when they want it, where they want it. And as Aarti said, get it delivered to a different address if they want to change it during the flow.
Right, absolutely. Ms. Mansi, would you like to add your views, especially around the visibility part, what Rohan was actually saying? You might be having a different layer of architecture, including your transport and other thing, but you can integrate and possibly you can have a better visibility, leading to a better confidence. You are on mute.
Sorry.
Yes,
So,
go ahead.
I could not agree more with Rohan on this. We are already on the way of doing the integration with our fulfillment centers. In fact, we had partnered with delivery back in the day, and where the target for us at that point was that our bestsellers should be shipping in 4 hours, and so that was only good, place close to Gurgaon here in NCR. However, now we are again talking to multiple people on having different fulfillment centers across the country, so that the TAT can therefore be better estimated and communicated to the customer. And of course, like you said, it leads to a better customer experience, more transparency. So absolutely, that's the next thing going forward. And also, given the fact that there is still so much of uncertainty in supply chain. I'm talking about my own sector, and the pricing is still very volatile, and then you kind of try and figure out the kind of business you want to be in. And fulfillment data, the warehousing and fulfillment and the last mile, it's not the business that we are in, and we have capable partners now, delivery being one, and we've been talking to a few more also. So that we can have closer fulfillment units, and we can have more targeted, targeted campaigns, like when we do like a newspaper editorial, or we do the targeted performance marketing around them, and then you can also offer 24-hour or the same day delivery, and it is possible if you are present in that fulfillment center. So yes, with the help of technology, having full visibility across fulfillment centers is very helpful. At the same time, we are able to focus more on what we are here for, which is the core value that the business wants to create, and the rest of the channels, the rest of the verticals are kind of taken care of. So that's why we are completely giving away our warehouse to a fulfillment center to take care of it, and so that we will not be sitting on ready inventory, which can be actually shipped in 24 hours, or the same day delivery can happen, and we can just focus on creating what we are creating. So it's definitely a huge value add, and yeah, I mean, of course, a better customer experience.
Right. Mr. Girish, if you can add your views, especially around the visibility part.
Yeah, so I would like to talk about from vendors' point of view and also from logistics partners' point of view. So what has happened is, as Mansi rightly said, still there is a lot of uncertainty as far as at least global supply chain is concerned. So European industry is still not come to normalcy, according to me. And what has happened is, because of that, we have to, if it is possible, we have to find alternate sources in Asia, etc. China is again, we can see that it is going under lockdown, and Shanghai is completely locked. So a lot of things are getting rerouted through Beijing and so on. Indonesia has curbed their palm oil export. So because of that, a lot of derivatives are getting affected, and a lot of raw materials and ingredients. So what is important is that although we can say, and touch wood, we can say that we are in the post-pandemic era. Although there is probably a fourth wave or whatever, that Z variant which is impending, but what is important is that there should be a feed-forward system, okay, from the vendors' ends, so that they can give visibility on two things. One is cost, and the second is availability as well as manufacturing capacity that they have committed to, and that they can commit to. So based on that, we can definitely plan our inventories. We can invest in working capital and get it done. But that visibility is, according to me, not up to the mark. That is first thing. And secondly, from logistics partners' point of view, what has happened is, post-pandemic particularly, aggregators have come into the picture. And because of that also, there is a lot of visibility which has come on a single platform rather than different last mile delivery partners. So both these things have improved, according to me, but still, there is some room for improvement there.
Right. Mr. Tarun, what Mr. Girish was saying was something, especially the challenge that most of the organizations are facing around the procurement part. Within the supply chain management, there are something which has been streamlined, especially in the procurement. You don't have the kind of visibility that you like to have, especially in the cost part also. How do you look at this, dichotomy of challenges that we are facing in post-pandemic world? If you could share based on your own organization experience.
So I think if the customer is making a purchase and our end consumer, if that's the index, so that's the mark on which we try to kind of judge. Post-purchase, things are a bit smoother. Delivery can integrate, another aggregator can integrate, tell us where the shipment is, change the address. A lot of things are a bit streamlined, right? Pre-purchase, it's a bit fractured, wherein Amazon has kind of how do I say it? Amazon is kind of Amazon has set the benchmarks right for a consumer experience, right? I would want to know 4 hours 40 minutes when mera shipment aa jayega. That part is probably missing. But before that, I think it's a nightmare. It's not even close to saying it's integrated. From a procurement to finished goods, the cost of technology to get the central dashboard in picture, what you have post-purchase, is incredibly large, and brands like us thinks nights and days to kind of invest that amount of money on that technology to say मुझे वो यूरोप के ingredient के बाद की भी कहानी पता चल जाएगी. That's a far more probably ambitious task for us at this end. But we have been struggling this for a while. We have been trying to click on the market to understand how do I get more visibility, because the more visibility you get, the more streamlining you can do for an uncertain kind of an event. But before pre-warehouse landing of the products, it's pretty much in a non-tech era. And post that, probably there is some technology.
Mr. Vikas, if you can add your views on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what Karan was saying, today customer has a lot of expectation in terms of the experience. And I know earlier Amazon was commenting that something will be delivered next day. Today it says about hours and minutes. Whereas new age startups like Instamart and Zepto say that it will be delivered in minutes and 10 minutes and 15 minutes. That is the kind of aggression has come into the last mile fulfillment. And there are a lot of channel partners now today. If you talk about the likes of the aggregators like Shiprocket and even Picker or even delivery for the matter, they are actually trying to reach at the last mile delivery as well. They are trying to open a lot of dark stores. They are trying to enable the D2C also to connect to the consumer, like in a way a quick commerce can do. So today, entire effort is made that the customer is not willing to wait. Today the patience has drawn out. Thanks to Amazon, Flipkart, who made them used to the one-day delivery, and today newer startups are trying to make that in minutes. So today, for a D2C brand to be relevant through their own website, I think they have to be very close to the customer, and the customer should be well aware of when the product is actually reaching them.
Right. Absolutely. Mr. Vedant, if you can add your views also.
It's the original question. I think we've just been. Yeah, what's your question?
Okay. So actually, we have been discussing about having the visibility across your value chain, including your supply chain, procurement, and different milestone that one organization would have to deliver the product to the ultimate users. And there, what Mr. Tarun and other speaker was saying that we
I heard them. Got it. Yeah. So obviously, knowledge is power, and you have to use that knowledge to best not just have control on your supply chain, but to see what's not going as per plan. Because eventually, an organization needs to make music. If one product is not coming on time, then your marketing team and the launch team and everyone needs to know about it at the end of the day. So having that visibility on supply chain, seeing what's getting stuck, what's not getting stuck, what can be an alternative, that's super critical at this point. I think especially in the apparel industry, which works with a lot of traditional businesses, this has been a very, very big challenge. A lot of people are trying to solve it right now, but I feel like at this point, we feel like almost like we need to do it ourselves. That's basically how we are working on changing this aspect of things.
Right. So before I come to you, Ms. Aarti, I'll go to Rohan. Mr. Rohan, a couple of speakers use the word customer experience, and now it's all about half an hour delivery, 10 days delivery, 1 day delivery, 2 days delivery, and that primarily depends on which sector you come from. If you're a pizza, possibly half an hour delivery is working. So what we have observed that to have that kind of commitment on that, you need a different level of automation, a different level of integrated platform, a different level of visibility across your value chain. And since CX has become a kind of de facto, which is basically defining how long you can sustain in any tough market, organization like yours actually enable even the last mile delivery in even the different pin codes where possibly it would have been a very difficult for any organization to go, but you enabled it. What is your general assessment of customer experience per se within the supply chain and retail industry? And if some of the things that you could talk about that within delivery that you have noticed over the years?
Yeah, I mean, technology is really driving customer experience. Right now there are things like social media escalations, or customers can reach out to you more directly through social media, WhatsApp, and other avenues, which didn't exist. If you go back 3-5 odd years, it was a lot more difficult. They had to pick up the phone and call and go into a call center. Now companies have figured out smarter ways to stay connected with their consumer. And that's a really important thing because, eventually the consumer has to buy and helps you pay your bills. What we've realized is that, I think Girish might have mentioned this, or one of the panelists, that what now is happening, 2 years ago, we would say, the prime kind of experience or 2-day delivery. That's now old news, right? Everybody wants everything at least the same day. If you can get it in 10 minutes, nothing like it, but at least the same day. So we are seeing customer experience improved when we try to reduce that. So let's leave the far away locations which are difficult to get to, which when we go there, it just physically it takes time to get to. But if you are in a metro or a tier 1 location, expectation is that you are getting the product at least within 2 days. Same day if you're in the same city, 1 max 2 days. When you are able to provide that kind of experience, and Aarti mentioned this, your RTO rates will be improved. They just improve dramatically when you are able to get the product faster to a consumer. It helps in terms of, say, one of the products that we have is called an Rvp Qc. What we do is when we do a return product pickup, we do a quality check based on what our clients tell us. The minute we do the quality check, the liability then is between me and the customer. The consumer has given us what they're supposed to give us. So it allows you to send a refund to the customer. That has dramatically improved customer experience, because it's literally, instead of the shipment coming back, which can take about 7 days, and then you do a check at your warehouse, and then you say, okay, now I'll pay, and then the payment company transfers the money. It's anything between 7 to 15 days. Right now, what we can do is you're able to provide Rvp Qc at the doorstep, and literally on that same day, you can refund the end consignee. And that means you're able to give the experience of 24-hour payment cycle. So these are the kind of, it requires a lot of collaboration between the clients and us to understand where is the evolution in the customer experience. Right now, one of the big things that we are working on is micro-fulfillment, because it's clear that keeping a warehouse in Bilaspur and trying to cover Noida is as good as going 1.5 to 2 days, simple because of the traffic in Delhi NCR, or if you take Bhiwandi and want to deliver in South Bombay. So we are putting micro fulfillment centers in about 12 different cities, because we know that there is now an expectation from consumers to get the product on the same day. And there are certain categories that lean really well to that kind of experience. So customer experience dictates how we think about our network, and how we think about the technology that's required to enable the experience.
Absolutely. Ms. Aarti, if you can share your views, especially around the general assessment of tech innovation that you are observing within the supply chain space for retail industry, and also customer experience is easier said than done, because there's a lot of cost involved also. So how do you actually ensure that that you are able to optimize whatever the IT infrastructure right now you have? Because most of I'm not sure about the young ones, because most of them would be on the cloud, but the traditional organization has invested a lot of money in traditional legacy IT infrastructure, and many a times it is really difficult for them to move straight away from legacy IT infrastructure to the cloud and have the same kind of agility and visibility or scalability that fintech or other organization like Zomato are able to offer.
Right. I think it's also very important to understand, to answer that question is, I think the first part is, as Mansi mentioned earlier, that you need to understand what's core to your business, right? So for example, today I think the great thing is we do have partners in place, right, their core business is to actually optimize for tags, or say order fulfillment, right, which is not the core business for us, right? And which is where we actually rely on the expertise of those partners to be able to achieve and improve customer experience, right? I think the second point is predominantly around tag, right? Which is where I think I saw, a lot of people speaking about, the 10-minute delivery or 15-minute delivery, right? While it's great, but I think it also puts a lot of pressure on your working capital, right? Because imagine you have to kind of produce a lot of things, right? You have to maintain inventory at so many different places, right? And your inventory management system and your planning has to be very accurate to be able to kind of, ensure your working capital doesn't go for a toss, right? And I think that's where we haven't seen a partner who's kind of, say, for example, how Amazon has, you send it to one warehouse and they would take care of the entire, dividing it between different micro warehouses, right? I think that's something, a problem that is yet to be solved, right? Also, I believe in certain categories, it's not that relevant. For example, in our category, नहीं है कि मुझे 10 मिनट में नहीं मिला मैं किसी और ब्रांड का खरीद लूंगा, right? Because it's also about the product category that you work in, which is where we are okay with a 1 day or a 2 day delivery. Honestly, like 10-minute delivery doesn't make sense. I mean, yet I would like to put a disclaimer yet in our category.
Right. Ms. Mansi, if you can add your views, especially around the customer experience, the cost pressure, and also these days, the immediate delivery in a single day, order in the morning and should have in the evening. It looks quite good, but it's put a lot of pressure on the organization, which is implementing all these things in the back end. You are on mute.
Yeah, I mute myself when you guys are talking. Yeah. So I do hear the concept of 10-minute, half an hour delivery. We all have been using Instamart and what Swiggy and Zomato has to offer. But thankfully, in industry like ours, when you are buying fashion or you're buying lifestyle products, the expectation is not of a 10-minute delivery or a 30-minute delivery like that. 24-hour delivery, 3 to 5 day delivery is a very normal concept, and for that within our organization we have this concept of intelligent inventory that we built. That's again, it's given as data by the system. It takes some input as to kind of growth you are projecting in 1 month, etc., and how much to order for the next 30 days. Standard supply chain phenomena like danger level management and having the bestseller built up and having them stocked at the ready to ship inventory. So what we are able to do therefore is give better visibility to the customer that these are the products which will get shipped in 24 hours. And to better their experience on those SKUs, we partner with fulfillment centers and last mile delivery people who are able to put it in their hyperlocal fulfillment centers and do like a same day delivery. But other than that, let's say about 40% of our SKUs would be non-bestseller category or would not have that quantum per month. So those we still do in a just-in-time method of production, which basically means that it will take about 5 to 7 days of delivery time. And we are not chasing 10-minute delivery because I don't think it is relevant to fashion or lifestyle as a business. However, it's a great concept. I understand where has this come from and the why people value it. However, like I said before, when as a company you want to target state by state or region by region, it does make sense to have that 360-degree kind of awareness where you are targeting them online, offline, newspaper, and then having a guaranteed 24-hour delivery. So that kind of becomes very magical therefore, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, I'll go to Mr. Tarun once again. Mr. Tarun, if you are able to hear me. Yeah, so I would like to ask you a couple of things. One, most of our speakers have spoken about, the concept of customer experience and as to how, this quick delivery play a very important role in delighting customer. And one of the speakers also said that it put a lot of pressure on the back end, also on the cost front. So as somebody who is a D2C leaders, what should be the 2 immediate key priorities for any person who is into this business down the line, let's say in 6 months, 1 year? What would be your thoughts on that?
Is this regarding the supply chain part? Because
Yes, it is regarding the supply chain. One of the biggest challenges is the procurement for most of you, I believe.
I think efficiently managing the customer experience, because supply chain has two different divisions, right? One is managing the engines of working capital is to products produced / procured, because as D2C brands, we don't have the luxuries to have a command over the backend like the legacy players would have because of the legacy they have. But I think effectively getting the fill rates managed to make sure that you have the right consumer experience, so to say. And that's something which we keep on double clicking, and it all boils down to your number of warehouses, your delivery players like Shiprocket, Delivery Express Bees, any company you work with from a warehousing to logistics angle ends up into a one KPI thing, which is fill rates. If you have 95, 96% fill rates across the channels you operate, I mean, you're doing decently well. If you can cross 99%, you're probably killing it out there.
Right.
Arun, for customer service, is your personal number still on the product?
Yeah, it's still there.
Oh, that's awesome.
Right.
Thank you.
So before I come to Vedang, I'll go to Vikas. Mr. Vikas, if you could share your views, especially on the two part. One is, in this era of quick delivery, how do brands ensure the timely fulfillment? Number one, and then you have to maintain your quality, whatever the fundamental things that you have been following, and also on some of the priorities that should be for anyone as a business leader in this space for down the line.
Yeah, so basically, if you want to be relevant in today's era, in the age of quick delivery and quick commerce, as Mansi was also pointing out, even Aarti was pointing out that it's not relevant to a lot of categories as well. It's more relevant to the impulse category, or if somebody needs it for their household for immediate consumption. So it makes a lot of sense there. But again, to solve all this puzzle, I think the most important criteria is data. Right. To have less pressure on your backend, you cannot produce and stock up multiple things at multiple places. You should actually be knowing what sells in Delhi, NCR, or what doesn't sell there. Even if you want to have a lot of multiple dark stores, using a lot of aggregators platform which you're trying to build. But if you're not sure about the data metrics or the consumer behavior and what kind of products are they actually wanting to impulse buy, I think that is what actually can define, and it can reduce a lot of pressure on the back end as well. Today, if you talk about the working capital and having multiple warehouses, having the same SKUs replicated across multiple warehouses as well, and also having multiple dark stores inside the city also has a lot of bearing on the cost of capital as well. And also the customer wants the product fresh. Unlike in fashion, we are basically a healthy snacking brand. So far as the customer expects that the product will be 1 or 2 months old, not more than that. So that the experience is also very important. So as wider you go, it's always important that you are able to micromanage things, track the SKUs at the batch level, and maintain a lot of FIFO or FIFO for that matter, so that the customer experience is not hampered at the cost of fast delivery. But again, same time, using data analytics, using a lot of new age experiences or new age technology services which are currently providing, you can actually mine a lot of things and understand the consumer preferences and requirements. Everything need not be delivered in 10 minutes, but there are a few things where customer will feel wow, and a lot of stickiness will increase. When customer knows it's just a click away.
Right. Mr. Vedang, if you can add your views, especially around the customer experience part and some of the challenges it put pressure in the backend.
I think a lot of people have spoken about the sourcing part, but it's also the last mile delivery, which is very much part of the customer experience. Right. The biggest question that people ask is, where's my order? I think that order anxiety is the number one thing. And that clarity sometimes goes for a toss. Even if it goes for like 2 or 3% of the customers, it's still a very big problem that customers face, right? And if we see a customer experience team that answers calls and all, unlike Tarun, we have a team. So for them, about 40 to 50% of our orders actually 40 to 50% of customer complaints are actually about where's my order. And that's because maybe the delivery company gave us a promised date. It's going to be delivered in 3 days. But even if it becomes the 4th date, right? People start to call you, you promised the 23rd, it's now the 24th. Where's my order? So that's that clarity needs to be there. And it's okay if it's 1 day extra, 1 day less. I think it's the where that order is, which is the number one thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, that kind of visibility ultimately brings confidence within the team, also the customer you are interacting with. So we are now in the fag end of this roundtable discussion. So I'm taking few questions from audience, and any one of you are free to take. So I'm just taking one from Mr. Sunil Bhardwaj. And what he's asking is asking, what are the key supply chain risks being faced by D2C businesses? And have you invested in any risk mitigation tools and systems? Rohan, Aarti, anybody, any one of you would like to take? Mr. Girish Kulkarni, any one of you?
Yeah, so probably I'll take it.
Yep.
So I think probably the biggest risks in supply chain today are, I think on the sourcing front, there's a lot of uncertainty, as I think we already mentioned, in terms of raw material sourcing because of global supply chain disruptions. So that's where it is, and finding alternate raw materials for those, okay, closer home is quite challenging. We can't suddenly change our formulations. So that is something which has to be watched out. And secondly, in terms of customer expectations, now the trend which is there, again, probably I think as a couple of speakers have already said, it is also, in my opinion, not applicable, at least as of now, to beauty and personal care industry in terms of 10-minute delivery or 30-minute delivery. But it is becoming a trend to go for shorter and shorter lead times. So that is another, if somebody is not working on that front, that I think would be a risk. So there a lot of integration is required.
Right. Mr. Rohan, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I think the two things that we would say, and I think it's covered in the conversation, is that customer experience has to be front and center, whether it's Rvp Qc, pre-checkout information, visibility of the shipment, better communication, faster communication, proactive communication. All of those are important factors. The second is building a supply chain that's resilient. I think we discussed that in the first question in terms of how brands and companies have had to react during the COVID era, and what we are experiencing right now. The news is that Apple's having supply chain issues, etc., because they're quite dependent on certain locations. So I think thinking through that becomes an integral part of leadership teams now. So I think that's it: customer experience, and resilient supply chains.
Right.
I think,
I'm just taking yes, go ahead.
I think if you're talking about D2C, I mean, amongst all of us, actually, there's only one brand which is D2C. It's Vedang, Soul Store. Like, if we can show some 30-second light on how to manage this question, because we are all omni-channel, and Soul Store is the only one which is D2C.
Yes, Vedang.
I'm sorry for Tarun's unnecessary questions, but what's the question?
So,
what's the question? I'm sorry.
So the question was something around what are the key supply chain risks being faced by D2C businesses, and have you invested in any risk mitigation tools and systems?
So I think the supply chain risk is on two sides, right? One is the inward, like your procurement side and your delivery side. On the procurement side, the way to actually de-risk, as I said, is to not work with like limited number of vendors or factories, and to make sure you're well diversified there, not just from a factory perspective, but also from a geography or a location perspective. Because as I said, like if something goes wrong in Kerala, forget just the pandemic, but we realize there can be floods, there can be anything, right? There can be riots, strikes, anything today. And at the end of the day, you have a responsibility to everyone at the firm, and there's no need to be putting all your eggs in one basket. Similarly, on the delivery, last mile delivery part, I think it's super important that your warehouses are also well diversified in different regions. Same thing. I think Rohan spoke about instead of it really being a hub and spoke, to make it more of a mesh like structure. That mesh like structure is super critical, not just for the end delivery partner, but also for your warehouses and things of that nature. So I think that's one of the best way to make sure that you have a very sensible and well hedged supply chain. On the most critical part of D2C is inventory management. I think the number one places where people break is the working capital is stretched, since they have too many locations of where the inventory is. And I think that's something that people really need to solve for. That, because I spoke about being well diversified, I'm just going to say there's a risk of being too well diversified. All of a sudden you have to have, let's say if you have like 50 warehouses, just giving a random number, or 50 dark locations, right? Then you have to have like 50, say for us, maybe Batman t-shirts at every location. All sizes need to be available at every location. All of a sudden you're just spreading thin. And if even like a few sizes run out in certain locations, you have to then do something about it. So balancing that out requires some bit of math, but eventually it's also a little bit of practicality that you get over time. And that's basically where what like some of the few things I would say that a true D2C brand needs to do.
Absolutely. And this is the last one for Ms. Mansi, and this is from Praneeth Bala. The question is, the expectation for same-day delivery is not there for consumer of lifestyle brand because nobody has cracked it yet. Would you like to explore it? So if you could share your views. You are on mute.
Absolutely. Like I said earlier, for our best sellers, the same day delivery is definitely something that we are chasing. And at least in Delhi NCR, we are able to do that. However, for cities outside of Delhi, where we are partnering with multiple fulfillment centers who have their fulfillment centers in various parts of the country, and there we can enable the same day delivery or a 24-hour delivery. Yes, like absolutely the path, the eyes are there on the path, and we shall very soon be able to do that. And also, like for example, with marketplaces, when we give stock in their fulfillment warehouses, they are also able to ship in 12 hours or 24 hours or same day delivery. Let's say Big Basket or Nika or like Amazon fulfillment centers. So other than that, as a brand directly to the consumer, we are partnering, like I said, with fulfillment centers in at least 5 to 7 of our core locations where majority of our traffic comes from, so that we can have a hyper-local fulfillment center in those regions and have our best sellers stocked up there.
Absolutely. With this, we come to the conclusion of this roundtable discussion. Mr. Rohan Shanbag, Mr. Girish Kulkarni, Ms. Mansi Gupta, Mr. Vikas Nahar, Ms. Aarti Gill, Mr. Vedant Patel, Mr. Tarun Sharmam, thank you so much for being such a wonderful panelist, sharing your views on different facets of supply chain challenges and as to how we mitigated some of the challenges during the pandemic and why visibility is really important across the value chain. So thank you once again for being such a wonderful panelist. And I would also like to convey my thanks to ET Retail and Delivery for putting this important dialogues together. Thank you once again.